All right, let's finally talk about information diets and how that affects people's opinions on things. So, the way that I've thought about it is that people come to their opinions on things in one of three ways. They can come to their opinion on things through like sifting through the facts and figuring out logically why a certain position makes sense. And what is that fact based on? It's based on whatever information they gain to determine like, okay, this is true because I've looked into it enough to determine that it's true, or I have some authority figures that I trust enough to say that it's true. So you start from some level of baseline truth, and then from those you end up making your argument for why your opinion is correct or not. I use the example of climate change in the essay, where it's like, okay, if CO2 emissions increase global temperature. Rising temperatures lead to melting ice. That melting ice leads to rising sea levels. And then you have sea levels that are too high in some areas, and then those areas are uninhabitable. And then you're like, okay, I think it's inherently bad if people can no longer live in the place that they used to be able to live. So therefore, I say climate change is bad. Now, that fact base comes from various authority figures that say such things are true, which is like your climate scientists, the IPCC, etc. Um, or you can have opinions from vibes, where it's literally just like, okay, the vibe is that my group says that this is the case, so I want to be in line with the vibes of the group, so I'm going to say that this is true. So the vibe is that every well educated, smart person believes in climate change, and I want to be a well educated, smart person. The vibe is that. So therefore, I'm going to say climate change is bad. And then received opinions, which would be, oh, influencer or some other respected journalist or etc. said this thing. So therefore, I'm going to spout their opinion instead of having my own opinion. Or their opinion becomes my opinion. But all of those opinions are shaped by whatever your information diet is. So, what media are you consuming? Are you reading the news? Are you watching pundits tell you about the news? If they're telling you about the news, then you're receiving their opinion about the news. And it's a question of like, okay, are you just going to spit the talking point that they have there? Or are you going to think through the facts that are laid out and determine your opinion that might be different from the opinion of the pundit talking about it. So there's a difference there of like, okay, if your information's coming from traditional news media and you're reading that, then obviously that has a bias in some direction. But for the most part, it's mostly just the fact base to gain from, especially if it's just reporting and not opinion pieces. So you can take that fact base and then be like, well, I'm going to have this opinion from that fact base. Or you could be reading it, and because of the way that it's written, it gives you like a certain vibe of like the negativity bias or something like that. So that might implicitly decide your opinion from vibes rather than from just the fact base. So, you have all that stuff going on, and the information diet really is core to what ends up being what you perceive reality to be. So whenever I'm talking with someone now, I have to figure out, okay, what does their information diet look like so that I can figure out, again, what is baseline reality for that person. And if I can figure that out, then I know what are the red lines, what are the things you can't talk about, and what are the things that are on the table to talk about. And then you go from there. And this doesn't have to be in a political context. It obviously it happens in a political context, but it could be in other contexts too, where it's like, okay, if this person knows a lot about D&D, then their information diet consists of some information on D&D. So you're like, okay, we can talk about these things within D&D or something like that. Maybe D&D was a bad example. I should probably say like gaming. So if I know that the guy's really into gaming, then it's like, okay, are they into gaming because they read a lot of games journalism? Are they really into that side of gaming, or do they just play the games? And then you can determine, okay, what do we talk about in terms of the video games? So yeah, you could do this with hobbies. You can do this with work. You can do this with politics. Like it doesn't have to just be politics. So yeah, that's basically what I've been thinking about lately. And it seems that increasingly, especially amongst people in my generation, Gen Z, that everyone gets their information from social media. So that means that your information diets are being algorithmically driven, and that means that you can be siloed into different bubbles based on what information you're getting from your For You page, let's say. So you end up with this situation where everyone's kind of implicitly in their own bubbles, but they don't realize that they're implicitly in their own bubbles, which is why you have to assess the information diet to be like, okay, what TikToks do you see on your feed? Oh, I see these TikToks on my feeds, or what YouTube videos do you watch, or what Netflix series do you watch, etc., etc. Because we, in some ways, no longer live in the same reality because of the media we consume is all tailored towards whatever we want. So, yeah, you'll have some overlap, but there'll be some areas where it's just like you're completely blind spotted because they're in this niche and you'll never touch that niche. So, yeah, been thinking about that quite a lot lately. So, anyway, like if you like, dislike if you dislike, leave a comment letting me know why you like or dislike, and I will see you all later. There is a link in the description to the original article, not article, blog post on this essay, on this from my Substack. So if you want to read that, go ahead and read that. It'll be more detailed than what I said here. So, bye.